An entitled Karen threatens to get me and my manager fired after she accumulates over $130 in bank fees on her bank account. And despite the fact that we tried to explain to her exactly how those fees came about, she still was not having it, but instead decided that she was going to make our lives a living nightmare. Here's what happened. So I work at the Woodforest National Bank, and for those who don't know, it's a bank based out of Texas, located primarily on the East Coast inside of a Walmart. And this story happened about a month ago. One of our usual entitled Karen customers comes into the bank demanding that we print her a new debit card because she lost her old one. Now, we issue debit cards the same day, so long as they pay a debit card fee, $10 for a reprint or $15 for a new card. And that fee is waived on certain accounts. Now, a reprint was a simple task, so I print her card and send her on her way. She then walks back into the bank because the last two numbers were slightly rubbed off. And this is due to how the machine prints the cards, and it is pretty common. The entitled Karen looks at me and says, "I want you to print this card again." I look at her and I ask, "Is it not working?" She says with a scowl, "Look at the last two numbers. Other banks don't give me cards with rubbed off numbers." I apologize to her and I say sometimes that happens with a machine. It rubs part of the numbers off when activating the chip. She simply says, "I don't care. It looks terrible. Do it again." I explain to her that, "Ma'am, I don't think this is a good idea. We really don't have control over how the machine works." This entitled Karen then raises her voice. She says to me, "I don't care what you have to do. Just print my card again so it looks nice." She then takes a pair of scissors and cuts up the card into tiny pieces in front of me. "Print this stupid card right now, or do I have to close my account and contact your manager?" Now, this specific market manager isn't someone you would know unless you have had a conversation with him before. So it's obvious she's trying to name drop him to get me to shut up and comply. So I decided to maliciously comply and get back at this Karen in a way she will never forget. I turn over to my manager and he gives me a nod. I then put on a devious smile and I say, "Absolutely, ma'am. But to ensure this won't happen again, we will need to change the numbers, so I'm gonna need you to sign some things." The entitled Karen looks at me smug. She says, "See, was that so hard?" We then spent the next 10 minutes printing out new cards until we get one that doesn't have the numbers slightly rubbed off. Each time the card isn't to her liking, she cuts it up and says, "Do it again." So I just smile and I say, "Sorry about that, let's try again." And I did this until 8 cards later, and she finally gets a card number that isn't rubbed off. She looks at me and says, "Finally, this card looks great, thanks." She then just leaves with a smug grin, thinking that she won, and leaving us with her massive pile of cut up debit cards. But what we forgot to remind her of is that having a completely new card generated outside of fraud or expiration would cost her $15 to be deducted from her account. This was made clear at account opening, and since she signed off on having all these new cards printed, there was nothing she could say. Normally, I try and help people avoid bank fees, but in this case, this entitled Karen had it coming. Fast forward, and a couple of days later, she comes storming into the bank looking angry. She looks at me and says, "What did you do to my account?" I responded by saying, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but what seems to be the problem?" She says to me, "There's a bunch of debit card fees on my account. What did you do?" I responded by saying, "Well, every time you had me print a new debit card for you the other day, a $15 fee was charged to your account. The first one where you only had me reprint the card number was only $10. When I said that, this entitled Karen lost her mind. She said to me, "You need to reverse these fees right now before I call your manager and I get you fired." Now, at this point, my manager steps in. They greet this Karen by saying, "Hello, ma'am, what's the issue?" But this entitled Karen goes nuts. She starts screaming, "Your stupid employee tricked me into paying over $100 worth of fees because he kept messing up my debit card." My manager said, "Ma'am, can you please not yell? Also, I was there. You demanded we print you a new debit card because you didn't like the numbers being rubbed off. We have your signature on these forms stating that you wanted these cards to be printed, so I will not be reversing these fees for you." This entitled Karen then screams that she wants to close her account, but the manager comes back with the greatest comeback on planet Earth. "Okay, but first you need to pay off your negative account balance as well as your line of credit." This entitled Karen then screams, "Just give me your market manager's number this instant." And that's when I chimed in and said, "Sorry, ma'am, but we aren't at liberty to just give out his numbers like that. Here's the number to the customer service if you would like." Now, this part is true, as he's instructed us not to give his number out to any customers who ask. The only people who need his his number, already have it. She takes the number and screams, "I'll have your jobs for this." She flips us off, kicks over a chair, and then storms out. We get a call from customer service later on about the incident, where we explain everything and scan over all the signed debit card applications. Also, she had us print 8 brand new cards and the reprint. That cost her about $130 in fees because she demanded a new debit card. The best part about it is my manager likely would have just waived the original $10 fee had she just been nice and asked us. But instead, she decided to be a Karen. And if she wanted to act like that, then truly there was nothing I could do to help her. Wow, that Karen was definitely acting like a Karen. She was being super aggressive over numbers being rubbed off your card. And trust me, I get it. You want it to look nice. But to literally cut it up in front of an employee for like, what, 8 times in a row? Also, you can get the perfect card? That just seems really weird to me. So good for the original poster for getting back at this Karen. Because based on the way she was acting, I feel like this interaction was definitely inevitable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for canceling my aunt's invitation to my wedding, even after she traveled the world just to attend it? Here's what happened. So my husband and I got married 3 weeks ago. My husband is from South Africa, but I'm French. So our wedding in the savannah in South Africa was a huge trip for the 13 French guests. We rented a beautiful lodge where we see lions and elephants and so many other things. And to thank everyone for coming all this way, we rented it for 2 days. The first day would be for the wedding and the second day would be for the pool party. We only invited 30 people and it was the people that we love. Now, I had a huge argument with my aunt 8 years ago and we cut ties ever since. But during the invitations, I thought about how close we used to be and I decided to invite her. There was no +1 for anyone, so I only invited my aunt, not her partner or her kids since I barely knew their names. My aunt said she was happy but insisted that we invite them as well. I told her no, but my mom teamed with her and pressured me a lot during the year. I explained that the ceremony meant everything to us and that we only want people we love to be present. But my aunt booked flights for her, but also for her family. She said it was a family trip, but added that she heard some of my guests canceled, and so there is now space for her family. I told her that it would not be happening, but that her family could join us for the pool party the next day. After that, I got even more pressured by my mom into inviting them for the wedding itself. And this is because they're coming all this way. But I kept refusing, and I tried to finish my dress without my mom. On the big day after the ceremony, my husband and I left for an hour in the savannah with the photographers to make a few photos. As soon as we came back to the lodge, my aunt came to me smirking, and in her arms she was holding her kid with her partner standing behind her. Now, I'm not the scandal type, so I didn't know how to react. I kissed the kid hello and I shook hands with her partner. I immediately felt sad for not defending myself. I then heard my mom and grandma telling my aunt about the extra chairs and food we had and that her family must stay for dinner. My sister lied to me, saying we don't have enough chairs because some are broken. So my aunt announced that they are leaving. I asked why they were leaving. She was supposed to stay for dinner and they are only 5 minutes away. She replied that she never intended to stay for dinner, but that she will spend time with us when they come back tomorrow for the pool party day. And honestly, I was shocked. And you know what? I replied that I had a change of plans and that she and her family could not come for the next day anymore. My mom, who was usually lovely, absolutely lost it and told me that I had no right to cancel my aunt's invitation to the pool party. But I reminded her that we paid for the whole wedding ourselves and that she has no say in who I host. And that's right when I walked away. But she yelled at my back in front of everybody. She was screaming that the conversation was not over and that I better come back. My sister had to physically bar my mom from running after me. But still, I stood my ground and I kept my aunt from coming back the next day. So honestly, am I the jerk here? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think your aunt and your mom were really conspiring against you, and they basically tried to work it in so it made you look like the villain if you did anything they didn't like. So I seriously don't think you're in the wrong, and I think your mom and your aunt are completely corrupt for trying to do the things that they did. My entitled friend refuses to tip anybody who is a server, claiming that they make enough money in the state we live in. And I'm honestly so embarrassed to eat with them, I now seriously don't know what to do. So I live in a high cost of living city where minimum wage for waitstaff is $15 an hour. It's been a decade and a half since I was barely scraping by on $15 an hour, so I can imagine it's absolutely horrifying today. My best best friend of 20 years is disabled, but she and her husband recently sold their home and came away with a lot of money from the sale. She's blown through most of this money. She's bought a new car, furnished her apartment, bought expensive gifts. She doesn't work, but she can't get disability for complicated reasons. Anyways, occasionally we go out to eat at chain restaurants, stuff like Applebee's or Chili's or even Olive Garden, and usually at some point between us ordering and the entree, she will comment loudly about how she doesn't tip because servers here make $15 an hour, and that is a livable wage. She says it's not like they're only making $4 an hour, and she doesn't feel that servers should expect more than that. The first time this came up, I was flabbergasted. I said that I've worked with servers briefly many years ago, and I know how much they count on their tips, and that I was never going to not tip for that reason unless we were in a tip-free establishment. She and her husband usually duck into the bathroom after the wait staff drop off the check and they put down their card. So I slipped some cash behind my receipt in addition to the tip I added to my card. I just felt like garbage because our server was really awesome, kept all our drinks filled without interrupting conversation, brought extra napkins, and helped us clean up a spill. So I picked up their tip, but I can't afford to do that every single time. So it makes me wonder, those of you who might be in this situation, making a high minimum wage in a high cost of living area, do you still expect tips? Is she the massive jerk I think she is for not tipping? I mean, am I overreacting in some kind of way? Because if people say yes, you still expect tips, I'm limiting our dining out to counter service places only. And if they don't, then maybe I'll still go to a sit-down restaurant. I'm going to keep tipping regardless of what she does, but I don't want to be in a situation where servers start associating me with awful tippers. We go to the same places often enough that eventually we'll be remembered, so that's definitely in consideration as well. Honestly, I think the original poster is asking the wrong question. Instead, I think they should be asking themselves if they should be going out to eat with these people ever again, because these people sound like they're miserable to eat with, especially if they're trying to antagonize the servers right off the bat. Like, who would seriously start off by being like, man, I'm not gonna tip anybody. You guys make enough money with $15 an hour. Like, what in the world is going on here? Why would you start off with that kind of animosity? In my opinion, regardless of what the server makes, I'm still gonna tip them for their work. I'm paying for my meal and their service when I go to sit down at a restaurant. If I was picking up the food or going to fast food or something like that where I'm not being served, then in my opinion, at least from my American perspective, I'm gonna leave a tip. So for them to just loudly be like, wow, you guys make enough money, I'm not giving you any more. That is such a weird thing to say, and honestly, I would just not want to put up with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for banning my teenage nephew from my house and keeping my family away from him on Christmas, all because he definitely has a history of stealing stuff? Here's what happened. So on Thanksgiving, my daughter lost her AirPods, and when we tracked down the AirPods using Find My AirPods, they were at my sister's house in my 13-year-old nephew's bedroom. He claims that it was a mistake and that he thought that they were his. But when we got them back, the AirPods was still in the pink donut carrying clip that my daughter uses. Now, this 13-year-old nephew has had a lot of mistakes over the years, from taking gaming controllers, AirPods, toys that he randomly finds. This has been an ongoing issue, and I think at 13, it's time for him to stop making this mistake. I told my sister that he isn't welcome at my house for Christmas because he has had too many mistakes there and he has stolen from other people, not just my daughter. Now, I don't think I'm being mean, but I'm sick of the little thief who has no consequences, and I don't want him in my home anymore. Because of this, my mom is now hosting Christmas because I don't want to. I made it clear to my family why, and I think it's past the time that we address this kid's issue. My mother and my sister think I'm going about this the wrong way, and I'm being way too mean on my nephew over a little mistake. But I'm honestly just so sick of being around him. I had to tell my kids not to take any expensive or new gifts that they like to grandma's, and I've also asked them not to share with their nephew, and any gift that we unwrapped at grandma's goes straight to the car and we're gonna lock it in there. This situation still makes me so angry because I now feel like I have to punish my kids for my nephew's behavior, and they can't play with their own things on Christmas, and instead they have to be vigilant about what their cousin steals, and nobody but me seems to care about how wrong that is. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, I think everybody else in this situation absolutely is a jerk, and you're the only rational person. It seems like this nephew has gotten away with doing this over and over again, and nobody has the guts to stand up and say, no, enough is enough. Because seriously, you guys have it right. There is no reason for your nephew to act this way and steal stuff from you and your family, and then for you to suddenly just turn a blind eye to it as if it isn't happening. Because guess what? This is happening. And I think it's smart to hold this kid accountable instead of just putting it on the side like everybody else and pretending like this problem's just gonna go away. Am I the jerk for not making my child move on an airplane just to accommodate someone with a possible disability? Here's what happened. So my husband and I were flying yesterday with our 1-year-old child. He's very active, so we always buy him his own seat rather than putting him on our laps for the flight. We had bulkhead seats, which are those at the front of the cabin with extra legroom. When we boarded the flight attendants told us to belt our baby to us for takeoff and landing, and that once the seatbelt signs were off, we could settle him into his own seat. That was all fine, and I put him in my lap and I belted him to me while I was waiting for other passengers to board. As the last people were boarding, another flight attendant came towards us with a tall guy using a cane. She pointed at the empty seat between me and my husband and asked the guy if that would be okay. My husband said, excuse me, what do you mean? The flight attendant then said, this gentleman is in some pain and needs some space to stretch his legs. The only bulkhead seat we have open is between the two of you. If you'd like to move next to each other, I'm sure this gentleman wouldn't mind sitting in the aisle or the window. I then spoke up and I said, that's not an empty seat, that's my baby seat. The flight attendant then said, ma'am, children under 2 aren't allocated seats. Please let the gentleman sit down. And right about now, we had blankets and a couple of kids' toys on the middle seat. Well, my husband, taking out passports and boarding cards to show her, he said to her, yes, we know you don't give infant seats, which is why I paid for it. My son is sitting here. I'm not holding him for a 10-hour flight at night. We planned ahead and I'm sorry, but this man cannot sit here. The flight attendant went and got the head flight attendant who agreed with us, and they carried on to find the dude an open aisle seat. The flight took off another 15 minutes later, so I'm assuming it got all sorted out, but when we told my husband's family after the flight, his parents started going on about how that's what's wrong with this generation, because apparently we don't consider others enough. So seriously, I need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You are definitely not the jerk, and for this guy's family to be like, wow, you don't consider other people, that is just really weird to me, because it really seems like this old guy didn't consider anybody else when planning his ticket. Like, if he knew he was going to have problems and his legs were going to give him issues, why did he not try to plan ahead and grab a seat with more legroom? Like, I don't know about you, but it's kind of annoying to have somebody else's problem thrust upon me and then being called selfish when you say no. So in my opinion, I definitely don't think you're the jerk, and I think anybody judging you harshly is just completely missing the point, because you and your husband planned ahead, and if other people don't like it, then honestly, that's their problem and not yours. Am I the jerk for telling my niece that I'm not obligated to find her a job with me, all because she's allergic to dogs and can't fulfill the duties that I really need at my house? Because right now, I'm being called insensitive, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I live with my husband and our 2 dogs, which is a 20-minute drive from my childhood home. My parents are there with my 2 nieces by the name of Sally and Emma, who are both 16 years old. Sally and Emma are not their real names. Sally is my brother's who passed away along with his wife 2 years ago, and my parents are now her guardian. And Emma is my sister's who is currently working overseas for a few years. She went to stay with my parents about the same time Sally did, and her mom is due back in the middle of 2024. Emma's father has never been in her life. My husband's family lives a few hours away, and we always spend the December holiday with them while my parents get Thanksgiving. Ever since the girls moved in with my parents, I offered them the chance to pet sit my dogs for my husband and me. They would need to take them on walks and feed them and all of that, and we offered a rather generous pay for the job. Well, Sally is allergic to dogs, while Emma is not. Emma took the job and did well and has been our December pet sitter for a couple of years now, as well as the occasional shorter-term sitter other parts of the year. Last week, I went to visit my parents and to ask Emma if she will pick up pet sitting again, which she happily said yes. I noticed that Sally was a bit sulky and asked her what was wrong. Sally said that Emma was lucky to be working for me at such a great pay and that she's guaranteed a job every December, and that Sally has to work minimum wage with the occasional babysitting jobs. Sally then said that I should get her a job too, just to be fair. I told her I don't create jobs, I just hire people for them. The jobs were just there, needing to be done, and it is unfortunate but not my fault that she's not qualified for a job that I am in need of. But Sally said an allergy is not something that she can control, hustle, and Emma shouldn't get to reap the benefits, and it's not fair. I told her that sometimes life isn't fair, and I suggest that she finds what she can do and make the most of it. My mom later called me and said that I was being insensitive, and maybe I could have Sally help file my documents or something like that. Well, I told her I would be wasting time and money having Sally do something that doesn't need to be done. My mom said my husband and I are well enough off, and we can spare a few $100 this holiday to save Sally's feelings. Now, I don't believe in coddling, and I think Sally needs to learn that things can't always go her way. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk here. I don't think you did anything wrong by telling Sally, hey, I don't have a job for you. It's not like you're singling her out or anything like that. You're literally just saying, hey, I'm sorry, but Emma can do a job that you can't. And it's really not personal, and I still love you, but I can't have you around dogs if you're allergic to them. And I think the lesson you're trying to teach Sally is a valuable one, and it doesn't come off like you were trying to be rude or mean or anything like that. I really think you were just trying to be nice and put her down softly, because at the end of the day, you're completely right. Even though she thinks that this is unfair and that Emma's reaping the benefits of something that she could do, but she can't do it because she's allergic to dogs, that way of looking at life just doesn't benefit anybody in this situation. Like, I'm willing to bet there's plenty that Sally could do that Emma probably is not that good at. And also, when it comes to your mom being like, oh, just spend a couple $100 this holiday season, you guys are rich. Like, that's first of all really weird to me, but also it does really seem like that would be coddling Sally, and it would seem to be like a waste of money to try and hire Sally for something that doesn't need to be done. And I totally understand the idea of like, oh, just be nice to Sally or something like that, but I think that it would be way more beneficial for Sally to have like a real job of some kind instead of having a fake job just to get money, because I think having the real job would benefit Sally a lot more in the long run, and trying to coddle her just to save her feelings is not going to go anywhere in my opinion. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.